Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing, testing. Testing. Alright. Just making sure that the audio issues that I had last week were not repeating. Hello, my name is Paul Westman. Welcome back to my series settings breakdowns. Last week you may have seen that there were some few audio issues, but just so you know, I did upload it onto YouTube and I was able to get the audio issues fixed on there, so you can go check that out at the Westman613 on YouTube and you'll be able to see a fixed version of that. Alright. Now, this week, since you weren't able to see, I'm reviewing, as you can see by the title, The Empire of Bones Saga by Terry Mixon. It is a sci-fi series, and it is, well, not one of my favorites. It is one that I do keep going back to because it does have some great scenes about it, and it's overall a decent story. Alright, so let's get into it. Alright, like I said, this is the Empire of Bones Saga. This is book 1, titled The Empire of Bones. Alright, a bit about the series. It is a sci-fi series, and it does lean more into softer sci-fi rather than hard sci-fi, but it does share some elements of both. Some subgenres involved in this series are, it's a more of a Lost in Space type deal, Journey Home, that's another rather common one there, and also does deal a lot with technological rediscovery, which is more of almost like a post-apocalyptic scenario, just rebuilding civilization. Length of the series is 14 books. It is a completed series, so if you want to start now, you have the entire story at your disposal. Alright, basic setting. This is again set into more real, well, it's set into our world basically, only into the far future. Location is basically what is known as the Terran Empire. It's a fairly common term. For those of you who don't know, that the Latin name for Earth is Terra, so it is often used in these sci-fi books to describe the Earth's empire. Some of the primary planets that are part of this is a planet called Avalon. In the Avalon system, it is a fictional place, but basically this entire series takes place after the Terran Empire has fallen. So the remnants of the Empire are now on a planet known as Avalon. The other key planet that is involved is Pentagar. There's a few others that get added later, but for early in the series it is primarily these two. Now, as it is Lost in Space, can't really talk about the setting without discussing like the actual ships. There's several ships, but main ones we'll talk about are the Athena, which is considered a destroyer class ship, although that does get kind of redefined as to what a destroyer class ship is because of later discoveries of older technology from the height of the Empire. Next is the Courageous. The Courageous is one of those old Empire ships that is discovered on their journey, and they do eventually refurbish it and use it. Alright, now getting into some of the technology of the Terran Empire at this time. First we got to talk about how faster than light is dealt with in this. As for travel, the only faster than light travel is known as what they call flip points, or it's basically a wormhole between two systems. They have to travel to each specified point in space, and then once they reach that point, they have a special flip drive, and what that does is that transitions them from one side to the other. So that's how they deal with the faster than light travel. It's not really the interspace travel or interplanetary travel. That's where it gets more soft sci-fi because there is some time, but not nearly as much as you would think would happen between traveling between planets or traveling from the planet to the flip point. That's generally dealt with in a matter of like hours in this series rather than days or weeks. Now, flip points do typically occur in system. Basically, for scale, it would be like no further out than Jupiter would be from the Sun. So they are typically discovered discovered closer to the Sun rather than at any point outside of the system. Now, these are all naturally occurring, so they don't have a way to artificially make flip points. Now, in this series, they discover another type. There's the regular flip points, but then they discover what they call weak flip points, which are much smaller, and they seem to be not emitting the same amount of energy as the regular flip points, which is why they are initially called weak flip points. The theory that is initially proposed in the book is that instead of a just like a regular 1-to-1 ratio for the flip point, the weak flip points actually go much farther away. And another theory is that they are weaker because they actually have multiple destinations that they can go to. Now, that's considered actually a very important discovery because even in the old Terran Empire, there was no record of these weak flip points. So they do consider that as like a benchmark of advancing past the old Empire technology. As for faster than light communication, initially there is none. However, one thing I do like about this is that it does include some base level of like government funded science, and they do eventually discover and incorporate a form of quantum communication, which does allow for in-system faster than light communication and a distance through a flip point that also allows for communication, but it does have a limited range on what it can do in the series. Alright, Now, another key piece of technology in this series is implants. Basically, the main implant is mental circuitry that's wired into a person's brain, and it allows them to directly interact with computer systems. In the old empire, it was very common for all people to have implants, although although the military grade implants were of a higher quality than civilian. Now, another important piece of technology is that they had reinforced bones, advanced muscular system, and even pharmacological implants that were developed to make super soldiers. What they did was these special forces soldiers were known as Marine Raiders. It provided them greater strength, speed, durability, and also heightened reflexes. And the last bit of important technology involved in these implants are medical nanites. Increased healing, reduced illness, and managed to increase their natural regeneration, although it does not provide the ability to regrow limbs, and it does extend a person's lifespan. Now, in the old empire, the medical nanites often increased people's lifespans to 200, 250 years, although there were some experimental advanced medical nanites that had been developed for the Marine Raiders, and it is shown later on in the series that they can extend the natural lifespan of a person almost indefinitely. Alright, next we're going to get into a little bit of the history, because it is very important to discuss, for understanding the series, to understand one significant historical event, and that is the fall of the Terran Empire. It is not described very well early in the series, but as you get further along, you find out exactly more of what happens. None of it's really spoiler related for the main plot, so I can go into better details in this discussion. First off, the fall of the Terran Empire was roughly 500 years prior to the start of the series, so we've had quite some time to develop. And what happened was AIs were developed and they were put into relatively common use. They're often used on their ships and in shipyards and various things like that. But then a new, more advanced AI was developed. But what happened was it became corrupted, and what it started to do was it started to hack into the implants of all the citizens and all the military of the empire. And what that led to was it actually took control of the people and it turned them against each other. Now, because this was a rather sudden event, this rebellion did not last very long at all. There was evacuation, and eventually the emperor of the Terran Empire, he sent his son to Avalon as a sort of last-ditch holdout to try and preserve what little was left of humanity that had not fallen under control of the AIs. And while Lucian did make it to Avalon and was able to land in relative safety. The AI forces, who at the time weren't able to act overly independently, what they did was they destroyed all the starships in the area. They bombarded the cities, destroyed the spaceports, and just left a lot of devastation, murdering the vast majority of the people. But once they did that, they didn't bother to check, and so they departed, leaving the remnants of humanity on Avalon. And that is how they restarted the Terran Empire from Avalon. So after that, like I said, reconstruction began. There was said that there's only roughly like 100,000 people who survived the onslaught, and most of their technology and science and learning had been either destroyed or made much more difficult because they no longer had any sort of infrastructure to support it. So in this series, spaceflight itself was actually only reestablished about 100 years prior to the main story. So one thing that they really hadn't done yet is they really hadn't gone back to too many of the flip points to sort of rediscover and re-explore and recolonize the nearby systems. Alright, now we'll talk some about the political entities of this story. First one we have to talk about is the Terran Empire. Like I said, it was reestablished upon the planet Avalon, which before the fall of the Empire, it was really more of a resort and vacation planet. It wasn't a heavily industrialized planet, but it has become more so with the redevelopment of the Empire there. Current ruler is the Emperor Karl Bandar, and he is a direct descendant from Lucian. It is it is a kingdom that is ruled by a bloodline. So there is a senate that is used to sort of balance the imperial power. Hereditary. Like I said, the Bandar line is the same one that ruled the old Terran Empire, and so that line has continued to rule up until this point. Next, we'll deal with, or we'll discuss, the Kingdom of Pentagar. Kingdom of Pentagar is one of the old parts of the Terran Empire. It is currently ruled by King Raymond Orison, and before the fall of the Empire, it was a part of the Empire, but it is one of the few bastions of humanity that managed to survive the rebel onslaught, and they are a direct offshoot of the original Empire. But what has happened is they do not have the same technological base as the old Empire, in part because of resources, and also in part because they are regularly in battle with a group known as the Pale Ones, which we will get into shortly. They are unable to actually use flip points because the flip drive that I talked about earlier, that requires special elements that are not found in the Pentagar system. So it sort of isolated them into that area, and it prevented them from exploring further. Alright, now we're going to talk about the Pale Ones. That is the name given to a group by the Kingdom of Pentagar. They don't actually have a name that they call themselves. Because what happened is that is people that are controlled by a corrupted ship AI. What happened was during the initial assault by the rebel AIs, the ship that was responsible for controlling everything headed out to Pentagar, because they're from a system that is directly adjacent to Pentagar, but that ship crashed and there was some corruption, and so it couldn't really spread out any further. But what it started doing was it started kidnapping local populations and sending them out to continue battling. So it kept using, it would keep enhancing people with the Marine Raider implants, mostly against their will, and it would then build very rough ships that it would send en masse to the Kingdom of Pentagar, and that led to a long-standing, basically, war of attrition. And the Kingdom of Pentagar manages to build up, and every 7 years or so, a new wave of the Pale Ones would come in, and they would destroy many of the kingdom's ships, and that caused the kingdom to sort of stagnate in their development. But because of the limited function of the ship's AI controlling the Pale Ones, it was also having a hard time developing. So that has just led to a centuries-long standoff between the two. The system that the Pale Ones come from is called the Ororsi system, and there are, because of the rebellion, the rebel AI's destruction of most of the cities and civilization, a lot of the humans have become more savage-like and far less educated, and these are people who are being kidnapped by the ship AI, then enhanced and controlled directly through those mental implants. Alright, and because of the nature of who the Pale Ones are, they really can't be reasoned with. They don't talk because outside of the basic instructions that were implanted from the ship's AI to the people, that has limited their mental development and mental growth. So basically they're almost more like zombies rather than an actual group of people. Alright, last group we're going to talk about is the rebels, which are basically the remnants of the old Terran Empire. This is a society that the majority of them are in a lower caste, and basically they use propaganda to tried to say that the old empire and the old emperor were highly corrupt and they were oppressing people, and that they were liberated by the rebellion. But each system now has its own specific AI, and that AI is referred to as the system lord. Now, that the system lord is an artificial intelligence is actually not widely known, because they tried to keep most of the population undereducated, but it is known to the upper echelons of the government and the nobility. Now, the higher class citizens, like I said, the nobility and upper class, and like mainly the officers in the military, they all have implants, although the only implants that are used with them are the mental implants. So they don't, the Raider implants and the medical nanites, they have been dropped out of use because the AIs have no need for them. Now, important factor to keep in mind, and one of the ways that the nobility keep the lower classes under subservience is that the lower class citizens are not implanted at all, and oftentimes they're treated very poorly. They're more like serfs rather than normal civilian population. They're also typically uneducated and denied opportunities to become educated. Now, an important leftover bit of programming that the AIs keep in all of their mental implants is that if someone who is implanted ever encounters a part of the empire or a part of humanity that was never conquered, then oftentimes what happens is they revert to an attacking programming, which will override any ability to communicate or facilitate any sort of discussion. Now, that is relevant because, well, not necessarily relevant, but what that does lead to is because they believe all of humanity has already been conquered, oftentimes they won't know the situation for triggering that response unless they are directly told. So, alright, now we're going to talk a little bit about book one itself. It's going to be mostly spoiler free, so alright. Now for initial locations, it all starts in planet Avalon, or in the system of Avalon, although they do eventually reach Pentagar. Main starships that are in use that the main characters are on is the Athena, which, like I said, is a destroyer for the Terran Empire, and that is where the main characters start on. They're going on an exploratory mission to try and discover more parts of their surroundings and maybe even rediscover parts of the old Terran Empire. The best deal is a scientific starship. It's an old cargo frigate that has been sort of reworked into a laboratory and science vessel. It includes a lot of people scientists, explorers, archaeologists, basically everybody you would need to explore new planets or to rediscover planets. They do eventually run into the Courageous. That is, like I said before, that is an old Empire ship that they start to refurbish and repower, and they use that often as a basis of their advancement into learning more about how the old Empire was run. Alright, now the main characters of this series, first is Commander Jared Mertz. He is a commander in the Empire Navy. He commands the destroyer Athena, and he is the one who is in military command of this exploratory mission out into space and through the flip points. He is a bastard son of the Emperor, and oftentimes that has led to problems because it wasn't actually discovered until he was already an adult, and they ran blood tests when he joined the Navy, and that is how they discovered his relationship to the Emperor. So it is not something that he has ever used, and it is something that has brought him some problems, and oftentimes it has held him back in promotions because of superiors who are who assume that he has gotten as far as he has because of his relationship to the Emperor. Now, the Emperor, he has openly acknowledged Jared as his son, although Jared is not in line to actually ascend to the throne, and he's not an heir, and it has caused problems with the Emperor's wife, well, ex-wife at this point, and children. Next we have Princess Kelsey Bandar. She is the daughter of the Emperor. She is somewhat kind of a brat, but she, at the beginning of the series, she does not get along with Jared very well. However, she does talk her way onto being an ambassador or a liaison to the ambassador, so that way she can go on to these exploratory missions, because one of her favorite hobbies is learning more about the old empire, and basically she has wanderlust. She doesn't want to stay in the palace, so she goes off on this exploratory mission with Jared Mertz and the Athena. Alright. Other main characters we have, though less so in the first book, she does become more significant in later books, as Crown Princess Elise Orison. She is the Crown Princess of the Kingdom of Pentagar that they eventually get to, and she basically acts as the liaison between Pentagar and the starship Athena, and eventually acts as the ambassador between Pentagar and the Terran Empire itself. Right. Now we do have some important side characters. These are characters in the first book that aren't really discussed much, but they do have their significance in the series greatly improved over time. in the series. So first of note is Carl Owlett. He's very young. I believe he's only like 17 or 18 in this at the start of the series. But basically, he's a genius, and he's sometimes referred to as like the next Einstein. He's a He's a scientist working mostly as an aide for the main scientists, but he is one who's often being at the forefront of the research into the old Empire technology and into developing new technology that even the old Empire did not have at times. Next is the Senior Sergeant Russell Talbot. Talbot is a member of the Imperial Marines, and he often acts as a bodyguard to Princess Kelsey, and he does work with the Marine detachment that is stationed on board Athena, although he does rise to more prominence later in the series. Now, as for the basic plot of the first book, Jared is assigned as the captain and leader of one of the exploratory missions to head out through the flip points and to basically find new worlds or rediscover what they can about the old empire, since most of that history has been lost. I believe it's mentioned that there are around 4 missions going out at this time, and shortly after they set off, and as they're reaching the edge of what they've already rediscovered as the New Terran Empire, that is when they first discover one of the weak flip points. And they check it out because there is no record of that ever showing up even in the old Empire, what they know. But when they go through it, they discover that they can't get back. So they are essentially lost in space, and they have no way to get back because they don't know exactly where they are, and they have no actual maps of the old empire because none of those happen to survive. But in this new system, which is never actually named because it was never inhabited by any sort of civilization in the first place, they discover a derelict ship. That is the Courageous. It's an old Empire ship, but the entire crew is dead, and there is no actual explanation of what happened to them, why the ship was there, or a concise history of where it came from. For exploring further into this system, they discover another flip point, which leads them to the Pentagar system. Now, the Pentagar system, like I said, they are under regular attacks by the Pale Ones, and when Jared Mertz first shows up at the Pentagar system, they are currently under attack. Now, the Athena does intervene and manages to save some people and help out in a small way, and this leads them to interact more with the Pentagar system and interact with the Orisons and establish sort of a diplomatic relationship from there. Basically, the next few books are exploring more around the system and Also discovering that the Rebel Empire still lives and is still existing, and basically what they've determined is that the only reason why they survived as long as they have in the new Terran Empire is because the old Empire didn't know they existed. Because while the old Empire may not have advanced much in the 500 years since the rebellion, what they have done is they still maintain the old Empire technology, so which is still vastly higher than what the new Empire has developed to that point. So the next few books are basically trying to prevent any knowledge of the old Empire or of the new Empire to be discovered by the Rebel Empire, and during that time they are also trying to find a new way home and basically trying to reestablish the new Terran Empire. It is a very good series, has great parts to it, and I do highly recommend it. So like I said, this is the Empire of Bones. It's written by Terry Mixon. He does have a few other series as well. The link to his website is in the title, the description. And so make sure if you want to read a decent sci-fi series, there's one for you right there. Next week, I will be discussing sort of a combined series. It is one that is actually traditionally published, but I haven't seen too much. It is written by Karen Chance. It is the Cassie Palmer series and the Darina Basarab series. The reason why I'm doing both is because both actually take place in the same universe, and they actually do intertwine quite a bit as well. So I'll be discussing that. That is urban fantasy, so going back to that as well. Right, I will see you next week. Stream at the same time, 6:30 Eastern Time on Sunday. And if you want to catch the if you happen to miss broadcast, feel free to check out the YouTube. It is the Westman 613, same as the channel name here. I upload all my videos there as well, and also hopefully with any sort of audio issues or editing corrected. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.